All right. Hello and welcome everyone to the last of our 3x30 attendees talk series on the topic of Foundation for Successful Events that we've been hosting on LinkedIn Live. Before we get going though, I wanted to acknowledge that we're gathered on the traditional ancestral and unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. Over the past few weeks, we've met some real powerhouses, Anthony Vade and Lindsay Martin Brilberry, to discuss price design and the myths of all-in-one event platforms. And today, we're welcoming Mahoganey Jones to talk about how to design hybrid event agendas that perform. Please say hello in the chat, get to know each other also. And then if you have any questions, we're going to have our team there to monitor the chat throughout this talk. My name is Daniel Mitchell. I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing here at Attendees. And if you don't know, Attendees is a versatile event management platform for busy event professionals managing a portfolio of corporate meetings and events, whether hybrid, virtual, or in person. I couldn't be more excited for our talk today with Mahoganey Jones. I'd like to introduce her. She's the founder and CEO of Event Specialists. It's one of Canada's preeminent event production management firms. For those who don't know, Mahoganey is the first Canadian event professional to become a certified digital event strategist. So I think she's a great person to have on this chat today. With her 17 plus years in the event world, Mahoganey was the recipient of numerous awards for her contributions, including the 2021 Event Professional of the Year and Top 100 most influential people in the events industry. So without any more delay, welcome, Mahoganey.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. Thank you. So, why don't we get right into it and have this discussion. So we obviously have a bunch of questions we want to ask and discuss specifically around this topic, but we thought we'd start off with, hybrid events have been around for a long time, and it's been brought up in multiple discussions throughout the year around the fact that they're not new. This is something that's been there. But I'm wondering, in your experience, do you think the way we approach hybrid agenda design pre-pandemic and now, has it changed?
I'll say since the pandemic has hit, it has definitely changed in how we're approaching our agendas, in that I feel like we were in panic mode to move our in-person agenda and the agendas that we were used to delivering and make it now available online. And without thinking or allowing us to rethink what the goal of that event really is and if the agenda needs to be matched one for one. Okay.
And so, when you look at what some of the challenges have been in ours, that we're still struggling with as an organization, what are kind of the best opportunities do you think still available to us to innovate when it comes to hybrid agenda design?
I feel like hybrid events, like you said, they've been around forever. They were here pre-pandemic. I feel like since the pandemic, though, it's allowing us the opportunity to redesign and rethink what this in-person experience can look like. I feel like the opportunity to design within parameters is also a benefit. It's allowing us to design micro experiences for the in-person audience. It's allowing us to redesign what the event experience can look like. And it's really allowing us to drill down to the core of what our agenda should and could look like. I feel like we're forgetting that we're using the pandemic as almost a crutch or as a limitation. And we keep hearing that we can't do or what we can't accomplish versus how can we still accomplish our goals within the limitations that we have. I mean, truth be told, your in-person virtual audience can be, or your in-person audience and your virtual audience doesn't have to be one-on-one, but it can be an experience that we use the limitations as a positive. VIP level experience in person. Ultra VIP online. Like, let's really start to look at that.
And do you, like, is the either lack of innovation or the opportunity innovation, is it which bucket is it fitting in the most? Is it the the process of the design of the event? Is it the technology that is either holding us back or giving us that opportunity? Where do you think the real innovation focus needs to be? Is it technology or the actual designing of the event itself, especially around the agenda?
I mean, that's a great question. For me, what I've always found helpful is that the technology was never meant to be the tool, was never meant to be how we designed. It was meant to enhance what we're doing and to make our goals and objectives happen. What I'm noticing in the event design or in the agenda and how we're starting to see events roll out is that we're looking at the technology first and then designing our agendas to match the bells and whistles of a platform versus let's see what our agenda needs to accomplish and then find the technology that is best suited to deliver that message. So I feel like we're forgetting and kind of putting the cart before the horse. I mean, again, with the panic mode of we have to find a platform, we have to do this, we have to do that. I feel like we forgot the goals and what we're actually looking to accomplish. Because truth be told, not every platform is meant for every type of event. So if we don't look at the agenda and what you're looking at to accomplishing, we're forgetting the core of that event and we're literally just building based on what the platform can do.
Yeah, so really get, too much focus, and like you said, scarcity drives, activity at times. And so, there's a skew towards hoping that the technology is going to solve the problem and not the design of how you look at those agendas and creating that event and being able to get back to the basics of looking at that and you'll be able to take way more advantage of the technology that you have available to you to really, really make it a powerful experience.
I mean, technology can't save a dying event.
Yeah, that's a very, I'm going to quote you on that. So how can, in your mind, how can you design an event agenda to drive connection points between in-person and the virtual audience as a hybrid event?
I like to think of I know I'm a little bit different in my school of thought when it comes to hybrid. I truly believe that a hybrid event is one journey. It is one customer journey that you're taking your attendees through, whether they're attending in person or online. I feel like the intersection is important and that we design elements to make sure that each audience is getting exactly what they need, but also understanding that they're an audience as a whole. What I feel like we're forgetting is that it's, again, like I said earlier, it's not a one-in-one. One true experience doesn't mean that every session has to be delivered for the in-person audience and the virtual audience. When we say that intersectionality between the two audiences, let's think of how we can ensure that both audiences are getting the experience you're looking to have. I mean, if you think of the analogy of a hockey game, being in person at the hockey game and watching the game happen and listening to the announcers and things like that in person, the person who's watching at home, they're not going to catch whatever's being thrown in the in-person audience. But does it make them feel like they're not part of the same experience because they're not getting that same giveaway? Absolutely not. So it's really being mindful of how you're ensuring your audiences are getting what they need from the event so that you're not leaving anyone out. And you're identifying both audiences. That'll bring them together. You're giving each audience the opportunity to engage how you see fit. Because truth be told, not everything is a one-in-one, like we said. So the virtual audience doesn't necessarily have to ask questions for every session, but that may not be the goal of each session. We also don't have to broadcast every session.
Has there been a particular story or example that you can think of where when you wanted to bring the two groups together, it was done really well, that you kind of had either an aha moment or you saw it and you're like, yeah, that's the way. When we want to bring those two audiences together, that is a great way to bring them together.
Oh, to be honest with you, it was really early in my career in doing hybrid. Like this is back 2008 or 9. It has almost become like on repeat. When everyone says, what's the one thing that we need to make sure a hybrid event is successful? I go back to the event MC, having that person in person and then being the bridge between the two audiences so that they can have a pulse of the room inside in the in-person audience and then also pulse of the online audience so that nobody feels left out and everyone has a main point of contact to be connected to each other. But that event MC, I feel like, has been in my opinion, one of the biggest, we'll call them the superstars of the events.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So, and you kind of touched this already, but I'm going to ask it again, and just to make sure, which is this concept of, you've got in-person or virtual only sessions. Do you have those sessions completely separate, or should you always kind of make every session available to both audiences to truly call it hybrid? Or is it a mixture of, here's an in-person event like a cocktail party as an example, here's an opportunity for a mixed, and then here's what you do for just a virtual audience, in that session, when you're creating that agenda and trying to organize to make sure that it's going to meet the needs of your stakeholders?
To be clear, hybrid is a marriage of in-person and online. A marriage is not one-on-one for everything. It's not always 50-50. So when I look at designing an event agenda, it does not have to include one-on-one. And truth be told, I know we're in the pandemic, and I know everybody's being forced to bring their events online. And now this word hybrid is scaring everyone. But hybrid doesn't mean everything has to be available to two audiences. We can be selective. We can be selective on the content that's best delivered to two audiences. Entertainment, like we know, is great for two audiences, but workshops are not always great to be shared with two audiences. So have a look at that. Another thing I like to recommend too, when you're looking at your event agenda, do a spreadsheet. We're already doing a spreadsheet for the agenda and how the flow is going to happen. See where we can put those intersectionalities together so that the in-person audience and the online audience is getting a feel for that experience that you're looking to deliver. But truth be told, it doesn't have to be everything. Maybe your in-person conference is 80% networking, and it's 80% networking in person, and you would like to keep that as a core value of that event. There's nothing that says you have to bring that core value to the virtual audience too. See what it is you want to transfer to that audience. Maybe you're known for that exceptional keynote that you deliver at lunch. Maybe that's all the virtual audience needs. Mm-hmm. So really redesigning to make sure you're meeting the audience.
Now, because you're triggering some thoughts, what about the length of a session that you're planning for your agenda, and you're looking at those different environments? And once again, probably same logic or message you would have, which is, an in-person session could be an hour, but that doesn't mean it should be for a virtual, or vice versa, whatever that might be. Do you have any suggestions or ideas around the duration of a particular, when you're planning that?
One thing I will say the pandemic has also been great and afforded us as event producers is the ability to shorten content. I mean, you and I have had this conversation. I feel like I've had this conversation with many others as well. TEDx talks are short, concise, and 10 to 20 minutes for a reason. I don't know when all of a sudden we decided that we need 90-minute keynote sessions, but the pandemic has allowed us to shorten a lot of things. One of the conferences that I've used as an example for many years happened probably, I want to say it was 2009 or 2010. It was a marketing conference. And we'll talk about the tools later, but an exercise that was done with them was to really see what the audience was resonating with. And they thought for sure, we absolutely have to keep these 90-minute sessions. And we have these, I think it was 45-minute keynotes at the time. Everyone said the only parts that we actually really enjoy were these 20-minute sessions. So they actually adjusted their conference agenda the years after to only be 20-minute sessions. That was 2009-ish.
Yeah.
So, there's something to be said for this content that I feel like we're overdoing, that we don't have to. So that 5-day conference we're seeing can now be shortened, still deliver the same bang for your buck, the same content, but can be delivered in 2 to 3 days versus 5.
What about the consideration around when you're looking at agenda design specifically, and to your point what you just said, where the in-person might have been a whole week or 3 days, but due to the nature of hybrid, you can make multiple adjustments to both the in-person and the continuation of that event for much longer, because you've got digital means that you can cut, dice, slice, deliver multiple channels for your event. So is there any, suggestions or things that you've seen that work really well to maximize that event when it comes to designing that agenda? Because you may not have a layer for week 2, 3, 4 that you build into that potentially. It's on top of your typical agenda, but then how do you actually build out that maybe to continue into an extended type of event experience?
I like to compare it to like medical conferences. So the medical conferences and other conferences where I feel like CEUs or credits are attached to the content. Obviously, those sessions have to be a certain amount of time to meet those criteria. But there is no hard and fast rule that says all of those sessions have to happen on one day for 5 days consecutively for whatever. But we can also have a look at how that content can be best delivered. Maybe we're seeing, depending on the industry, people leaving to go to a professional development conference. I mean, what were the sessions that were best attended? What were the ones that were the most successful? What were the ones that people actually claimed their CEUs for because they were there? Have a look at what that can look like and consider your 365. I mean, I know that seems to be a buzzword right now as well, the 365 events, but truth be told, let's extend our content. I mean, we used to sell conference proceedings, and I know that's not new. I don't know why all of a sudden, since the pandemic, that also sounds like it's a new concept. But I mean, I talked about this even earlier this week. We remember sending DVDs. We remember sending CDs that we also record. We remember sending cassettes. But I mean, we did all of those things. It's just dating us, Dan. It's just,
it is.
But at the same time, it still allows you to have your content live and work for you. It allows you to sell it after the event. It allows you to give people opportunity to have a taste of what the event can look like. Spreading your content out doesn't mean you're diluting your content. It means you're also opening your mindset and you're opening your audience ability to attend different sessions that work for them. I mean, we're seeing that a lot more with cross time zones, this hidden audience that we didn't know existed. Now that we've gone virtual, we've opened up these opportunities to reach larger audiences. We're truly global in the content that we're delivering. So how can we best maximize that for our organizations that we're planning for, whether that be a 2-day, a 3-day, or over a month?
Yeah. You've got my mind racing with so many different ideas here, but when you have, you spent the time on your spreadsheet, as you mentioned, right? You've got great sessions and speakers and keynotes, and you've got all your colors on it, and you've got the times, but what considerations do you to really make sure that spreadsheet goes into execution and you're maximizing, especially when you're trying to create an agenda that does have a hybrid session or workshop or whatever that may be? Are there some considerations after spreadsheet that you really need to think about to make sure that the execution is really crisp and you get the outcomes you're looking for? So things like room design, camera design, the things that you need to really, that you might, it looks great on paper, but then all of a sudden you got to go do this. Are there any kind of considerations or things when you're going through that planning process that you need to think about differently? Like, do you need to have a massive conference center with massive rooms, or should you actually be approaching it completely different? And maybe you're going to smaller rooms and smaller designs, but better tech as far as audio visual, multiple cameras, production, those types of things. Because that's also what's going to make that agenda go somewhere. So I'm curious on your thoughts on that.
I love that question. And I feel like a lot of that comes down to budget, and actually will, I'll say, debunk a little bit of that myth that we always hear that it's, 2 or 3 times more to produce a hybrid. When I'm looking at my agenda and I'm looking at the content being designed, and we know what we have to hit. So normally the in-person agenda is pretty complete. And then the virtual was always that afterthought. Now that we're here in the pandemic, a gift has actually been that we're already thinking about what we're going to deliver online versus, oh my gosh, we sold out our in-person, let's consider adding online. So when you're looking at your agenda and looking at, I'll have to say budget right in that, the design of the event content will help determine what you can actually deliver online. with that being said, exactly what you said, considering the lighting and the sound, we have to ensure that the sound and the lighting of the in-person audience can be translated to the virtual audience, meaning speakers and questions all go into a microphone so that the audio can be captured for the virtual audience, or training of your speakers to make sure that they repeat the question that was said from the in-person audience to allow the virtual audience to hear it. Lighting, I feel like, is one of those things that almost becomes an afterthought. But truth be told, I was always a firm believer in lighting and sound. And I feel like without lighting and sound in any conference, it falls flat. So using that to your advantage means you can use it as a design element for the in-person audience, but it creates a beautiful feed for the virtual audience so that they are able to see and hear the speakers with clarity. One thing that I am starting to see, to be honest with you, is this design of a space that makes everyone also feel comfortable. So we're really starting to see a redesign and a reshift of the in-person audience. I mean, a lot of our conferences we are seeing, everybody is sitting side by side again. We're back to that in many parts of the world, but not everywhere. So for me, an attendee watching virtually, do I feel uncomfortable because I'm looking at an event where there's no masks being worn, there's no 6 feet between each other, not even 2 feet. All of those things come into consideration. And then that brings up your budget considerations. Personally, I always work with the AV company, see what you already have in the room, see what you've already paid for, and see how you can allocate that to make sure that it's meeting the needs of both the in-person and the virtual audience. But again, it doesn't have to be one for one.
Well, yeah, because I mean, if you spent all that time really mapping out this agenda and trying to make sure that it's great content and great speakers, you know, and you said this in a session, in a different talk that I was listening to, you know, you mentioned about, you know, lighting over flowers as an example, but you talked about approaching budgets differently. So if you used to spend for your conference and you used to go and get, you know, the biggest conference center in Vegas, and that takes a big piece of your budget, do you need to do it that way? Or could you take that same budget, different type of video or venue design and structure, and then be able to bring in some of those other pieces of technology or whatever that might be to get the best end result that you're looking for?
And also reconsider those venues that you're actually looking at. Because truth be told, pandemic has also allowed venues to redesign their own space so that it can work for you. So like, what is already built in? Do they have the technology to support? Do we need that massive room, or can we go to a smaller room like you're saying? And truth be told, some of our other boutique spaces, our companies, like we're seeing the rise of these virtual studios, or well, I'll call them a virtual studio for lack of a better term, but there are studios that you can go to that have space and be able to accommodate what you're looking to accommodate.
Okay. So we've got a couple of minutes here, and I wanted to make sure that if possible, we could leave the audience with something that they can get their hands on, something tactical they can potentially bring back into their organization to help through this process of designing really high-performing hybrid agendas. And so, you know, the question to you is, you know, based off all the work you've been doing and the fact that hybrid's not new to you, you've executed multiple hybrid events in the past. Is there a process you take your clients through, or a tool that you have that you can talk to the audience about that may possibly they can then take and also use back in their organization?
Absolutely. I do also want to address that MC question.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Please do. My window is really small.
And I feel like, sorry, Raj, I didn't want to cut you off. It does actually get distracting unless there's a schedule. I script everything, to be honest with you. And I also script the audience to be prepared for what they're seeing. That MC doesn't have to be front and center in the in-person audience. They can also be behind the scenes, almost off to the side by the tech table, so that it's not distracting to your in-person audience, but you're still aware that they're there. Finding ways to make it convenient for both so that they're following a script and being prepared for that. And 2 MCs, I don't normally do. I actually normally do 1. I have seen people have 2 MCs so that they can interact with both audiences. I have seen it work well with 1 MC so that each person is having the same experience.
We're in all kinds of questions here. Let's why don't we let's
go to the agenda question. We can always come back if you'd like.
Yeah. Thank you for all the questions, everyone. That's great.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the question being, you know, your clients, you're helping them through this process. some type of process or tool that you're using to walk them through to help them make sure that these hybrid agendas they're creating are going to be, going to be awesome.
One thing I like to start with is an exercise called the Ssk Method. We use it in business, and I feel like we use it in our regular work days. Some organizations, obviously, others not, but it's a tool that I feel like is valid when reimagining what your event could look like. So the Ssk Method is literally start, stop, keep. So you ask your team, what would you like us to start doing? What would you like us to stop doing? And what would you like us to keep? And within that exercise, that is actually how the marketing conference was able to adjust their schedule and their agenda, because they wanted to start doing more keynotes. They wanted to stop doing the long sessions, and they absolutely had to keep doing some of the networking opportunities that were there. So they went through the exercise themselves to make sure that they were hitting the mark from a internal perspective, but you can also poll your audience and your attendees and get their feedback. What would they like to see? Another hidden way to see that is also by reading your conference surveys, for those of you who collect those, and read it for the feedback. I mean, how many times have we read through the feedback and it's actually not relevant to the event they were at? I mean, I have seen that, which I find very funny on a survey. And it's actually an idea that they were at a different event or something that they've seen. But you can pick up on some of those cues to see what you can start doing, to see what you can keep and see what you can stop.
How about the chat? I personally find chat transcripts or chat, just like putting people in the chats, are some of the most informative ways to find out what people are liking, don't like, the types of questions that are popping up. Really can help drive a multitude of different data points to make changes either on the fly or for future.
That's very true.
But that's something I found super valuable. And then we also have a couple of different links for tools that Mahoganey uses within her planning processes that we'll be sharing in both the chat and down below. You'll see it in the banner also. So please grab those and use those to be super valuable. I know we're running short on time here. Any last comments, suggestions that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Absolutely. So the one-page business plan that is being shared is really how I like to drive what happens in the event overall. But I also use it as a tool to drill down what is actually going to land on the agenda and what is going to happen. So in that one-page business plan, it takes all of the different elements that you were going to cover in the event, drills it down to one page so that you understand the mission, the target audience, the goals, and the KPIs you're looking to meet. So with that being listed front and center and very concise, it's a lot easier to say, our goal was literally to deliver an exceptional keynote. That means we are only delivering an exceptional keynote, and everything else we don't necessarily have to spend budget dollars or negotiation for things like that. But it can also be used to support your decisions in scaling back that agenda or budget considerations when it comes to let's spend on XYZ session setup, delivery, and things like that, so that the agenda matches our actual goals that we're looking to accomplish.
Very good point. So with that end, thank you so much. If people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to reach out?
Best way to reach me is on LinkedIn.
And we'll share that in the comments.
Is also LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly. I will. We'll share that in the comments. Also, your LinkedIn link for anyone that does want to connect with Mahoganey and speak more on some of the topics that we've talked about today. Really, really appreciate you joining us. I know you're super busy. If you're going to be at the Event Tech Show in London, Mahoganey's going to be there. Connect with her. It'll be a great event to go to. This is the last of our 3x30 live talks for this particular topic, the foundation of successful events. It's been awesome. We've had some great powerhouse names. Anthony Vade about price design. We had Lindsay Martin Bailey about all-in-one, the myth of all-in-one tech platforms. And then obviously the discussion that we just had with Mahoganey Jones around high-performing hybrid agendas. And this will all be on demand for those who want to go back and re-listen, watch the talks that we've had. So please do so if you want. Super grateful having everyone that's joined us. I hope you found these valuable and have taken some good takeaways that you can bring back into your organization. Don't forget that we do have the giveaway for the event design book bundles, the value of $75. We're going to be doing that in about 2 days from now. So if you haven't registered, please do. There'll be a link in the chat once again. They're great, great value, great books to really help you maximize the benefit of your events and how you design them. And if you want to reach out and learn anything else about attendees, please do. Otherwise, thank you again, Mahoganey. Hope you have a great week and weekend, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.